Okay, so today we need to talk about Cuba. Cuba, Cuba, Cuba. Now, if you're like most Americans, you woke up this morning and you had no idea that Cuba was such a problem. Okay? Whenever you go to drink water or to go and take a shower and that water's running out of your faucet, you had no idea that Cuba would be such a big issue that it would consume all of the brain capacity of Washington so that nobody can focus on the actual problems of Americans. Cuba, Cuba, Cuba. It's actually pretty amazing to me. The idea that Cuba is a problem is like saying cow farts are a problem. Okay? There are countries in the world that do their own thing. They have countless numbers of people in those countries. If those people didn't like what was going on, they do something about it. That's kind of what it is. But the idea that Americans should give two damns is interesting, to say the least. So if you woke up this morning, like the rest of us did, and noticed that Cuba was the number one brainchild and or issue that I guess we're going to focus on next, right out of Iran. It doesn't seem like we're going to make a pause at all. Seems like we went from Venezuela down to Iran, and then I guess, like Trump said, we're going to take a trip up to Cuba on the way back home. Now, the reason why this is a problem is all of this pretends like they're not actually passing any policies that are going to help us. So we don't know if these wars are going to help us one way or another. But we do know if they went and put bills on the floor that actually help the American people and that we got hold of them to read them, that we can understand if that's helping us or not. And that could be happening in real time, but that's not happening. Okay. But let me tell you what is happening. You just get a gander at this.
Talks about the fact that Cuba's goal essentially is to erase the United States from the earth. It also details a Cuban spy network that's been undermining American interests. How did we get to a place where Cuba has become so much of a threat, it feels like, again, to the United States?
I think for those who
I feel like that's the number one question. That's the gazillion dollar question. How did we get to this point? Ma'am, I'm here to tell you because they just made some shit up. Because it makes absolutely no sense. Cuba is not a big country. Cuba, in no means, has the ability to do much of anything because it's struggling in poverty. It's under sanctions. Okay, so whatever story is about to be told, I'm just here to let you know some, it's just not true.
have followed the issue of Cuba, or this is not unfamiliar to us, but to the average American, you see Cuba, small country, 90 miles off our shores, 9.5 million people population. What people forget that when it comes to things like espionage and influence operations,
Sir, people don't forget. See, this is what happens when you live in a bubble. Travel down to the Midwest, go to the East Coast. Nobody gives a damn. It's Cuba. The only people who care are people in Florida, where half the Cubans fled to, and Marco Rubio. The rest of the country does not give a damn. So when he says that we might not realize, we might not know, he has to understand we might not give a damn.
they actually are an influence and espionage superpower. If you look at the history of espionage in the United States, Cuba is the only country that consistently has implanted and embedded spies in our system without even paying them. We had an ambassador, a U.S. ambassador, who ended up being a Cuban spy and was recently convicted. We've had them penetrate the highest level.
Now, I don't have a problem with them showing anecdotes, but my problem is let's put the numbers on the table. If we had to put it on a chart between how many spies have been captured and or suspected of being a spy, and put all the countries in a line, I highly doubt Cuba even shows up on the bar chart. Like, let's be honest. How many of you guys have ever heard of a Cuban spy getting captured? This probably happened back in like 1983. Cut the bull.
levels of Defense Intelligence Agency. Ana Belen Montes was one of the single biggest
Look at that.
intelligence
2001. 2001. Sir, it's been 25 years and you have two people. This is crazy work. Crazy work. This is probably when Cuba actually had a chance at prosperity. Come on now, sir.
failures on the part of the United States and one of the biggest penetrations we've ever had in our system. So, and then on the influence front, if you look all throughout Latin America, every communist left-wing insurgency that's destabilized governments across the region, every single one of them over the last 40, 50 years has found its support, its help, in many cases its birth from a Cuban influence operation. So
And look at the way she's just sitting there nodding her head like a goddamn drone. Let me catch my breath. Even if what he said is true, it's insignificant. It doesn't matter. These people have no military. These people have no way of waging war. These people have no way of dreaming up any scientific type of inventions that could rival ours. What's the point? I'm gonna tell you what tends to happen with these people, and it's not him. It's everybody. Okay, it's both sides. It's everybody. They all think they're like gods. Okay, they all think they're gods. They find out that when they get in power, that turns out majority of the rules and things that the American people may not like are not illegal. And if they're not illegal, then why does it matter? And especially over the last few administrations, all of this pretending like all of this stuff is normal is the reason why he's able to sit here in front of Trump's, I guess, granddaughter. I don't even know who this woman is. The Trump family Fox News member, Laura Trump. The fact that she's able to sit across from him and he's able to sit across from her and actually say this with a straight face is an indicator that the American people have lost control. Now, this guy's going to be running for president soon, and I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it there on the Cuba thing and just kind of wrap it up on this. He's going to be running for president soon, and I highly doubt that anyone asks him any serious questions about Cuba as it relates to, okay, but on a scale, relatively speaking, you can release a report, you can talk to the American people, you can use propaganda, you can do all these things. But in totality, relatively speaking, if you had to place them in line with all of our challenges, both domestic and international, and even as it relates to the espionage and the other, let's just say, dangerous fronts, where does Cuba rank? And I'm here to tell you it probably doesn't rank. They can release whatever reports they want. This is how the American civilization can fall, is when you have naivete who believes we can fight four wars at the same time, who thinks we can trample anybody we want when it doesn't work that way. See, you have to at some point come to the realization that treat people how you want to be treated. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. This is nonsense. And I really do hope that at some point our politicians on both sides get to a point where we can actually think about the American people again because between this type of activity and the DSA activity of defunding the police and basically getting rid of prisons, I don't see how these are not two equal extremes. But y'all tell me what y'all think. Do y'all think that we should take Cuba? Do y'all think that it's a big issue when you wake up in the morning? Is it really on your mind, or is it how to pay for daycare, or how to pay for healthcare, or how to retire? I don't know. Seems like very obvious answers to me, but that's for you guys to decide in the comments. Appreciate you. See you in another video.